Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. We have some very important developing news out of the Maine Senate race where there have been some reports in the last hour or two that Democratic candidate Graham Platner could potentially be dropping out of the race amid a possible scandal. Now the most updated news that we have is first I noticed on X from Politics and Poll Tracker account that there were unverified reports circulating on social media that Graham Platner would be facing a opposition scandal coming out this week, with rumors coming out that may even be coming tomorrow on Tuesday. And some of the following tweets that took place have kind of added to this story. Graham Platner canceled all upcoming campaign events over the next like 3-4 days or something in Maine Senate Race as well, without giving an explanation for why that is happening. So that was one thing that happened. So Platner canceled a few of those events. And then you've seen some of these tweets as well from people who, important to mention, we don't know obviously if the reports, they're unverified reports, we don't know if they're true or false, but some have said things like this person, David, said, "I'm sworn to secrecy, but I can't prove any of this, but if what I heard is real, it's a problem. I think he drops out if it is real because he's already facing significant financial problems." And he says, "I doubt this is a smear piece as the Republicans would likely want him to stay in the race." There's been some other things said as well that was retweeted. Let's see. This is also Politics and Poll Tracker did an excerpt of this saying, "I've heard the allegations as well, and Platner would have to drop out if confirmed by a reputable news source or news outlet." And they said, quote, "It's worse than New York Times story from last month." So these unsubstantiated reports, obviously we don't know if they're true or not, but in my experience, Politics and Poll Tracker have been very quick on the news, on a lot of election news. They've also been very reliable, and several times they post several key stories and polls per day. So when it comes to looking at election news and election sources, I trust them very significantly. So when you see them say if the allegations that they've seen is true, that Platner would have to drop out, that is very significant. And this video I'm recording around 3 p.m. on Monday, so you're seeing this video on Monday as well. And we may very well have to do a video tomorrow on Tuesday talking about Platner potentially dropping out of the race if these allegations do ultimately end up being true. They also showed a poll from Tavern Research, which I think came out between July 3rd and 6th, so this only just came out today as well. And it showed Platner leading 52-48. So in advance of the scandal here, Platner in this poll is leading over Collins by about 4 points, showing where the state of the race is at this current time. It also showed in that same poll among independents that Platner led 59-41. Let's see what other things we've had here. The poll did also include a few other names. Hannah Pingree, who was obviously the Democratic nominee for governor in Maine, her name was brought up, but also Troy Jackson, the Senate president of Maine, who ran for governor, who lost in the primary, but who did have a pact with Hannah Pingree as well for the ranked choice voting. There's a whole process that doesn't really matter too much, but his name is someone that the Democrats have to replace Graham Platner. Troy Jackson is someone whose name could very well be in the mix for that potential situation there. I think there is a poll about this as well further up here. Let's see. Then this is where things start to get significant here, as the Bangor Daily News, who Bangor, Maine, obviously is the city in Maine, one of the larger cities in the state of Maine. They released an article as well talking about Platner postponing multiple events. And they said, quote, "Multiple Democrats told the Bangor Daily News they expected a national outlet to drop a story about Graham Platner Monday or Tuesday." So this one is not 100% confirmed if it'll be Monday or Tuesday, but they're expecting a thing to come out about Platner either today or tomorrow, which could obviously be very detrimental to him and his campaign. And then from this, they also said in the Bangor Daily News that Graham Platner postpones multiple events this week. The Democratic U.S. Senate candidate Platner has postponed a string of events Sunday and Monday as rumors circulate among Maine Democrats and over social media about another potentially damaging story to come about the oyster farmers' past. The last time I checked, that may have been the most updated news source we have out of the state of Maine. They also posted an account called the Washington Reporter, which describes itself as a center-right account, and they said to take this with a grain of salt. But this center-right or Washington Reporter source says that Graham Platner is reportedly dropping out of the Maine Senate race sometime this week. Notes that Platner has not yet released his Q2 fundraising totals, which could be a sign that he may be underperformed expectations. And on top of that, with this scandal, it may be a sign of Platner could potentially be dropping out in the next few days. So that's kind of all the updated news I do believe we have thus far that is confirmed. Another poll came out today between the 4th and the 6th. Sorry, it's my phone. For Wedgwood, which they showed that Susan Collins was leading Graham Platner 50-46, and for Susan Collins versus Janet Mills, a 50-50 race. But again, in that Troy Jackson versus Susan Collins poll, it's 48-43. And they asked a very important part of this poll, which is if another story broke that's negative about Graham Platner's personal life, would you want him to drop out? 75% of respondents said yes, 20% said no. So there could be a lot of momentum here in the next 24 hours. We may be looking at Platner potentially dropping out of this race, which would very significantly impact the Maine Senate race here. And this just broke as I started recording a few minutes ago that Ryan Grimm of the Drop Site News, who's an outlet I'm not too familiar with, to be honest, but he said the word is swirling that, quote, a very damaging allegation is coming against Graham Platner as early as this afternoon. So even though I'm expecting this to come out on Tuesday, there's a chance by the time this video comes out, you may actually see news that is coming out today as well here. I think that was the updated news that I have. I'll just do a quick refresh as well here. Last time I checked, that was the most updated news that we had here from Polls Tracker. And yeah, so that's where things currently stand on the updated news front. And look, this is very significant. We talked about this in other videos as well. Maine is one of 10 Senate seats I currently have as a toss-up. You know the significance of Maine. You know the importance of it. It's held by Susan Collins. It's the only state that Kamala Harris won in 2024 that currently has a Republican senator. So Democrats really want this state. They really need this state. There's no pathway to victory for the Democrats to take the Senate back in 2026 without winning the Senate seat in Maine, and Democrats know that. Now, Graham Platner, who you could argue back and forth, is he a better general election candidate than Janet Mills? Early on, most of the polls showed no, probably not. But then as Platner became the front runner, he started to poll better. So the question was still up in the air. But Democrats really cannot afford to lose the Senate seat, and that could be something that may be coming to a head here if Platner does drop out in the next 24 to 48 hours. We can look here. I have Michigan pulled up, but we can look at the Maine Senate race on the PollsMax website. Their prediction currently has Susan Collins at a 62.6% chance to win, which would account to roughly about a 1.9% projected margin of victory. We could also look on the election simulator website as well from electionjoyer.com. This is a new one that I have not used actually yet in a video. So this is the first time I'm using it in the video here. And they go through a simulation of the Senate race for Maine. Let's go to the general election here. And we can actually see what it would look like. You can go through moment by moment, and it'll go through county by county. But I think we're just going to go to the end here and see what they forecast. They currently have Graham Platner winning 50.6 to Collins 49.4. So from two very reputable prediction sites and I do believe prediction YouTubers or the social media prediction YouTubers and content creators and such, they both have very close races here. One where Susan Collins wins, one where Graham Platner wins. Very, very close results. So we know the stakes of this race are incredibly close, and Graham Platner's scandals are really going to make this probably better chances for Susan Collins. So this news is very significant, and we're going to stay obviously right on top of this news as more time comes out, because we may very well end up seeing Platner drop out in the next, anywhere from the next hour to the next 24 hours. Platner may drop out of the race, and then all the speculation from there is going to fly. So as of the time recording this video, this is the updated news. We don't know what's going on for sure. It does look like there's a good amount of smoke that Graham Platner may be dropping out. At this point in time, if Platner were not to drop out and the scandal does drop and it's very damaging to him and he stays in the race, you may very well see enough of a turning point, if it's as bad as the reports say, that we may potentially see a Susan Collins defeat Graham Platner. In my most recent prediction, even with these scandals going on, I did still have Graham Platner ultimately beating Susan Collins in a lot of these races, but I think this scandal might be bad enough for now Susan Collins to be the favorite against Graham Platner. Now, if it's Troy Jackson versus Collins, the only poll shows it a 5-point race. I still think it'd be close, but I think we'd see the Democrat ultimately win by a small margin on that scenario. So very interesting news, very fascinating. If there's any more news that breaks, I'll certainly do another video updating it. Probably that'll come out tomorrow. That'll probably be it for today, but I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd appreciate if you hit like and subscribe if you did, so you can stay notified as more news like this breaks on these very important elections. For now, though, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.